A history of being cheated on, an unhealthy relationship with anger, numbness to your feelings, impulsive behavior, fear of taking responsibility or an inability to take responsibility, and withdrawal from you into work. If you've experienced any of these 6 signs from a man, you need to listen to this video because we're going to be talking about exactly why they're red flags, how red of a flag they are, and what to do about it if you've seen these in your guy. Welcome to the channel. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let's dive straight in. Number 1 is a history of being cheated on. Now, we can hold compassion for people, for men who have been experienced infidelity in the past, who have been cheated on in the past. It's not fun to be cheated on. You may have experienced yourself. It's a heartbreak and it is a betrayal. But when a man is cheated on, it's a little bit different to when a woman is cheated on. If you've been cheated on in the past, it's most likely that your man at some point followed his impulses, disconnected from you, and took action on that. That betrayal hurt you and you're probably, hopefully, not with him anymore. But when a man is cheated on by a woman, a different series of steps usually has had to have occurred at that point. You see, in general, women don't cheat for physical reasons. Women are more likely to cheat for emotional reasons. So while the woman was definitely in the wrong for cheating on the guy that you're talking to or that's been cheated on in the past, we have to ask, why did she do that? And there's really only 2 possibilities. The first is he's absolutely terrible at picking women. He wants to be a rescuer. He wants to solve their problems, and he picks the worst possible women who are the most impulsive, and he has a terrible picker. In which case he's coming after you and you might have some introspective work to do. But more likely, number 2, what's going on is emotionally he's not able to be there and to capacitate for her. He's basically building relationships that are gradually disconnecting to the point where the woman doesn't know how to handle it. The conflict is so bad in that relationship that eventually neither of them know how to fix it, and she finally cracks first by cheating on him. Her pain as the woman, she's less likely to be able to numb it as long as he is, so she's the one that finally breaks and cheats. Unfortunately, if a man has a history of being in those kinds of relationships, you have to label it a red flag. Now, if he's gone to therapy, if he's done coaching around why that happened and what his take was, and if he can own that part of the story, this is not such a red flag. Rather, it could turn orange or even perhaps green. But in a lot of cases, you won't find that. You'll find, he's been single for 4 years or 6 years, or he just got out of a relationship. But in all of them before that, he's been cheated on. So you really do need to ask yourself, why is a guy getting cheated on? We all are responsible, for the patterns in our lives. You are responsible for your reality. I'm responsible for mine. And a man that's getting cheated on over and over again is responsible for that. He's doing things or not doing things that are creating that. And you have to ask what that says about his relationship skills. Usually, unfortunately, it means they're pretty darn broken. So steer well clear of men who have been consistently cheated on unless they can show you a green flag to tell you why you shouldn't. Number 2 is impulsivity or impulsive behavior. A lot of people don't know this, but impulses are a trauma response. What is an impulse? It's our subconscious mind making us do something without our conscious mind getting the tick off, without our conscious mind giving the clearance. You see, impulses release dopamine, and that's very useful if you want to distract from something bad, something painful, something you don't want to experience. Now notice, I'm not talking about spontaneity here. Spontaneity is taking something in with your conscious mind and saying, yeah, you know what, I feel safe, let's do it on short notice. This isn't that. Impulsiveness is typically things you regret. Impulsiveness is things that you don't wake up in the morning and decide you're going to do. It's eating the chocolate, it's watching porn, it's grabbing that alcohol bottle, it's cheating on your partner, it's doing drugs. It's the thing that relieves you from the thing that's deeper. When we're impulsive, it's because our unconscious brain is trying desperately to move us away from something. And the best way to do that is dopamine. Dopamine focuses our attention, it gives us pleasure, and it takes us away from whatever we might be experiencing on the inside. This is why it's so easy to do impulsive things that are pleasurable in the moment, but which we later regret across all aspects of our life. Impulsiveness chronically means you can't trust the person. Unfortunately, it means the person is disconnected from themselves, as in their unconscious mind, and they just end up following the impulses of the unconscious mind. The hard part for you as the possible partner is the unconscious mind doesn't really care about you in this case. It cares about protecting the person from their own pain. So you become the collateral damage often of the impulses. When a person impulsively drinks, impulsively cheats on you, impulsively watches porn, impulsively does drugs, impulsively does some other form of addictive or distracting behavior that triggers dopamine, you can see how you come out the loser in that situation 9 times out of 10. You get hurt, and then you carry that trauma onto your next relationship, or you have to do the work to heal it. Either way, the trauma that led to the impulse in the person is now getting passed on to you. That is why impulsiveness is a sign of an emotionally broken man. And unless a man can learn to control his impulses and hold space for those big, difficult emotions, he's not going to be worthy of your trust and certainly not capable of a healthy relationship with you. Number 3 is an unhealthy relationship with anger. Anger is one of the strongest, fiercest, most energized emotions in the human psyche. In any psyche, actually, animals have it too, but unfortunately, it can also be one of the most damaging when used incorrectly. Men often are told we're not allowed to experience vulnerable emotions. And there's some purpose to this. We don't want weak men walking around society crying at the drop of a hat left, right, and center. But unfortunately, when you go to the extreme, what you have is men who bury every negative emotion and have a lot of unprocessed shame, trauma, guilt, sadness, fear. All the vulnerable type emotions are sitting down there, but they all get pushed down because they're not manly to express and they don't have a safe outlet for those emotions anywhere in their life, and everything gets replaced with anger. You might have been with that guy that gets angry at the drop of the hat, that goes to anger all the time. Maybe you've even met a woman who does this. You know that she's really sad, she's really fearful, but she actually just goes straight to anger. You do see it in men a lot more than women. In men, it means they're distracting from the real emotion. Now, you can do that for a while, but unfortunately, when you do that, the pain of the real emotion, the sadness, the fear, the guilt, the shame, whatever it is often so great that it takes a disproportionate amount of anger to come over the top of it. And that's where you go from healthy anger, which is boundary setting anger and protection anger, to unhealthy anger, where you start to try to cover up your weak feelings with anger by controlling those around you, by becoming aggressive, even by becoming physical. Any displays of anger that stem from insecurity, that stem from hurt, that stem from fear, that stem from sadness, not stemming from setting a boundary, that's healthy anger, but from any of those negative emotions, when we launch, and when a man launches to cover up that negative emotion with anger, you again can become the collateral damage of that. Now, on the flip side as well, we have men who don't use anger at all. And this is a huge issue with boundary setting. This is basically nice guy syndrome. If a man doesn't have access to his anger, often you will be the masculine in the relationship. You will find that you're taking the lead a lot. You will find he has no conflict skills, and often he'll repress all of his wants, needs, and desires until they become resentment, until he cheats on you, until something comes out sideways, or until he becomes so disconnected from himself that he has to disconnect from you to stay in the relationship, so you end up wanting to leave him. If you've got too much anger because you're covering up other emotions, or too little because you've been shamed for having anger, you've been shamed for being a man, you've said your anger is unhealthy or it hurts people or blah, 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 either of these are huge signs of unfortunate emotional damage in a man. Now, of course, it occurs along a spectrum, and you're going to see the most damage at the extremes of the spectrum. A man that jumps to extreme anger, obviously the slightest insecurity is going to be very dangerous, and a man that has zero access to his anger is going to be just a vanilla, boring, nice guy with absolutely no ability to have a relationship because he has no conflict skills. But guys are going to fall all along this spectrum. So you have to be the judge as to whether this is a red flag or even a black flag at the dark ends of the spectrum, whether it's maybe an orange flag with a guy who can take feedback and correct his behavior, or if your man actually has a really good relationship with anger. That is, he can use it appropriately when it's necessary. He can be angry, but he doesn't use it to replace weaker emotions, especially at inappropriate times. And he also doesn't smush his anger down like a nice guy would. Having a good relationship with anger is actually quite a challenging thing for many men to do. And as I say, it's not a binary thing. They do or they don't. It falls along a spectrum. So one of the best things that you as a woman can look for is a man who does have this healthy relationship to his anger. He's able to do conflict. He's able to hold his anger. He's able to use his anger to energize him. He's able to use his anger to protect himself, his family, and you. But he's not using it to replace those weak emotions. And he's certainly not pushing it into a corner as the nice guy would. Look out for a guy who has a good relationship with anger, and make sure you have a similar relationship with anger for yourself. The fourth sign of an emotionally broken man is numb responses to your feelings. So have you ever shared a feeling and you say, that really scared me, that really hurt me, that just terrified me, or I just felt so uncomfortable when this happened, and a man sort of just looks at you and shrugs? You get no response. You get blankness. Oh, this is what it is. Oh, doesn't matter. Now, sometimes this can be a man who doesn't know how to respond to you. But a lot of the time, unfortunately, it's happening because the man, he doesn't know how to validate your feelings without going there himself. And so to keep his own system regulated from difficult feelings, which he doesn't want to go to, he dismisses yours. It's not necessarily because he's a bad guy. But what he's trying to do is regulate his own nervous system so he doesn't have to go near the brokenness that he's feeling inside. Now, where might that brokenness come from? Let's say his mother shared all different types of emotions, and as a boy, he was trying to fix them, which of course is impossible, so he's never able to fix his mum's emotions for years at a time. Eventually, on the inside, he starts to believe he's a bad boy, he's a bad child, he's a bad man, because he can't fix a woman's emotions. And so now, as an adult, you come to him and you share an emotion, and immediately all his memories of being a failure, being a horrible child, being a horrible boy come up to him, and he shuts down emotionally in response to that. Another thing that can happen is maybe he has disowned that emotion within himself. So if he's been pushing down sadness, if he has no relationship whatsoever with that emotion, then when you show that emotion, he has a lot of trouble relating to it. You can see how both of these essentially show a form of emotional brokenness in him, and how it's really hard for him to connect with that emotion. So he basically just has to numb yours out. Now, the caveat here is you do have to make sure you're sharing an emotion. I often ask clients, I say, did you tell him how you felt? And they say something like, yes, I told him that I felt like it didn't feel good, or I felt that he was disconnecting from me. And it's amazing how often women think they're sharing feelings when they're not. If you're actually sharing feelings, it will be incredibly vulnerable for you. You will have a lot of fear when you share them. There won't be any form of attack or forwardness to what you're saying. It'll be a lot of openness and vulnerability. So you have to make sure you're sharing feelings correctly, because a lot of women think they're sharing feelings and they share thoughts or they share interpretive feelings, which the man's more likely to debate, and then you're off in a different situation. A man needs you as the woman to lead the feelings domain of the relationship. He's going to want you to be the big sharer in that area. And so you need to make sure you're sharing correctly if you want to give him the best chance of responding well. That being said, as I've said, there are plenty of emotionally broken men out there that are not going to be able to respond to your feelings due to their own nervous system dysregulation. I've even had a bit of this myself in my own relationship that I had to work through. So it's really important that you look at how a man can respond to your feelings and how he does the work to improve himself if he's struggling with that. When a guy is numb to your feelings, when he can't acknowledge them, when he can't say, yeah, you know, that I can validate that you feel that way, or I can see you feel this way, how can I support you with this? If you just get nothing, it's a sign of how emotionally broken he is, and you're going to have to decide if he can do the work to turn the relationship around, or if you can be with him if nothing changes. Most likely, neither of those things is going to be true, and you are going to have to consider leaving that relationship. Number 5 is a failure to take responsibility for his life, his words, his actions, his mistakes, and ultimately his results. So why does a failure to take responsibility show an emotionally broken man? Well, a failure to take responsibility actually shows an emotionally broken anyone. And the reason is taking responsibility hits too close to the bone of the trauma of him being a failure, of him being unlovable, of him being a fundamentally bad boy or bad person. It hits too close to that wound to take responsibility, so he won't do it. He'll blame things outside himself. He'll blame you. He'll blame the economy. He'll blame his education. He'll blame this. He'll blame that for where he is, but he won't ultimately be able to say, you know what? This is my responsibility. I caused this. I'm to blame here. I'm the one that has to fix it. He won't be able to do that. I'm not talking about doing it from a victim position where it's like, woe is me, I'm helpless, it's all my fault. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about healthy responsibility taking. An emotionally broken man won't be able to do that. When we bury trauma from when we're young, those feelings and the stories that go with them, it gets smushed down. And we avoid situations, our unconscious helps us avoid situations where they could be reactivated. Why would it do that? Because it doesn't want that pain reactivated. It thinks we can't even survive that pain. So we're going to avoid anything that could share a similar story from whatever painful story we had when we were young. Until we're aware of it, of course. But assuming the guy's not doing the work and not aware of it, then if he's got this story of, well, I'm not good. I'm fundamentally bad to women. I cause women's life to be worse. This is referring likely to his mother in this case. I am a bad boy. Anything that sounds similar to that in his adult life, he's going to avoid. So he can't take responsibility. There's too much pain there that's blocking it that would come up. It's like driving down the street where you had a car accident. It's too close to home. He doesn't want to go there again, and he won't be able to take responsibility because saying I was bad and I did this thing, it just hits way too close to bringing up that pain. It's that amount of pain that makes him emotionally broken, and it's why he won't be capable of a healthy relationship until he works on it. So failure to take responsibility as a man, it's one of the worst, one of the brightest red flags on this list. And if he can't take responsibility for his life, his actions, and especially his relationship with you and the mistakes that he's made, you really should not be with that guy. And number 6, he withdraws from you into work. This final sign is more of a sign that he has given up, resigned, that something is off with him, his self-worth, or the relationship. And unfortunately, he's doing kind of the one thing in his life where he can feel validated and feel successful. This one can be a little convoluted because you could be playing a role in it as well. If a woman has shitty or toxic relationship habits, she can funnel a man into doing this, and he will go to the place where he feels somewhat successful and somewhat validated, which is his work. Unfortunately, what eventually happens is one of you disconnects. She cheats, he cheats, one of them breaks up with the other. They cause increasing fights until the fights get really toxic and they hate each other, then they break up. Something happens finally after that series of events. But when a man is withdrawing into work, when he's not spending time with you, when he's not spending time with the family, when he's completely, I'm not talking about a guy that he's busy when you meet him and he stays busy because that's how he's always been. I'm talking about a guy that progressively withdraws more and more in his career and disconnects increasingly from you. It's a sign he's feeling broken. It's almost certainly a sign that he's feeling the relationship is broken. And it's a sign that if you guys don't change your habits and get things right, you may have to take some responsibility as well. It's both of your problems to solve. Then the relationship, you may as well end it now because it's going in a dark, dark direction. Those are the 6 signs of an emotionally broken man. I hope you got heaps out of the video. And if you want to work with me on meeting an emotionally healthy man, let's do it. Book a call. The link is in the description. Leave a comment if you enjoyed the video. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Hit the subscribe button with the little bell, and I'll see you in the next video.